There's a story about a father and the two sons that he had. The father, he was an alcoholic. By most people's standards, they'd say he was just a scoundrel, really didn't have the life that most people would look up to. They tracked down both of the sons and asked them both the same question. They went up to the first son and asked him, hey, how come your life turned out like this? He pretty much turned out the same way as his father was. You know, he was an alcoholic. Most people say he was a scoundrel, really didn't live up to most people's standards of, what most people would say was successful. And they asked him, yeah, how come your life turned out this way? He gave the answer, well, look at my father, what would you expect? Of course I would turn out this way. Then they went to the second son and they asked him, hey, how come your life turned out this way? And for context, this guy was a professional, he became very successful by most people's standards. He was nothing like the father. And they asked him, how come your life turned out this way? And he gave the same answer as the first son, just look at my father, what else would you expect? I made the decision and I thought to myself, I will never be like this guy. When I grow up, I'm going to be completely different. And, that's what happened. When I heard this story, the main thing I got from it was that it's not the circumstances that you have that determine the way that your life turns out. It's what you do with it. It's what you think and how you actually, move from the circumstances that you have. Because again, there can be two people who are born to the same circumstances, but the direction of their life turned out to be completely different. I was walking outside and just thinking, kind of reflecting over my life, and I thought to myself, okay, if I were to go back in time and just give one piece of advice, just teach one thing to my younger self, what would it be so that he could grow from it and just give him the most impact so his life could be better essentially? What is the one most useful thing that I could teach my younger self? And the answer that came to me was to focus on your thinking. Your thinking is so important and it is the major determining factor in the way that your life turns out. A lot of people will think that it's circumstances, because I was born here, because I look like this, or because, yada, 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 all of these external things. And they say, okay, because of these circumstances, my life just has to be this way, just giving themselves that excuse. Now, I'm not saying that circumstances don't play a role, but what I am saying is that your thinking is the major determining factor in how it ultimately turns out. Because the way that I like to think about it, the analogy that I like to use, is that your thinking is the set of your sail. You can imagine being out at sea and the wind is blowing on everyone. It's pushing everybody in this direction, right? If you set the sail and just adjust it a little bit, you can go in a completely direction than everybody else who's just operating by that default. A lot of these higher level concepts make a lot of sense, but it's just too vague and broad for us to really concretely understand it. So, I'm just going to give you an example of one area of my life where I've actually seen how this played out. Because the way that I like to think about it, the analogy that I like to use, is that your thinking is the set of your sail. You can imagine being out at sea and the wind is blowing on everyone. It's pushing everybody in this direction, right? If you set the sail and just adjust it a little bit, you can go in a completely direction than everybody else who's just operating by that default. So when I was younger, about the middle school to high school era, that was the time where I was going through puberty, getting really horny, whatever. And it was around this time where I was starting to hear stories from my friends who were having experiences with these girls. They talk about, oh yeah, I made out with this girl, or oh, she sucked my dick, or we had sex, whatever. Telling stories about these sexual experiences. And it really intrigues me because, in my mind at the time, I just didn't know that was possible. I understood intellectually, okay, yeah, people have sex, whatever, but it just didn't click for me. I didn't know that was actually possible, especially for the people around me. I just didn't understand it. I thought it was something that only happened in movies or some shit. But anyways, after hearing a bunch of these stories about these experiences that my guy friends were having, I was okay, I actually want to do something. I want to have stories to tell for myself. So I was okay, I just need to lose my virginity. If I lose my virginity, I'll have sex. I'll understand what all of this is like. So that was my goal for a big chunk of time. So in my spare time, I would just obsess over this. Every time I got on YouTube, I'd be watching videos about red pill stuff, female nature, hypergamy, and just learning all of these things from the guys who were really having a lot of success with women. I'd be talking to my friends about, okay, what do you actually do? How do you text them? What do you say? Just learning as much as I can to see, okay, how can I actually get the result that I want? I started to really obsess over it. When I watched these videos from these influencers, or I'd hear these stories from my friends, or the advice that they would tell me, in my head, I was thinking, there's no way that this would work. There's no way you could text a girl this and she'd actually respond. I just had all these negative beliefs. I didn't understand the way to think to get these results, essentially. I'd be watching a video about the red pill and like learning about female nature, and I'm like, dude, there's no way that this is actually possible. But gradually over time, my thinking started to change, because I would see, okay, well, these guys actually have the results. They probably know more about what they're talking about than what I know. My friends have actually gotten the results, so maybe it's just something that I'm not understanding. Started to change my thinking, started to change the way that I thought about the whole game and whatever. And I'd say about 2 years after the point where I really started obsessing over it, I think it was like my sophomore year, I lost my virginity, and it was awesome. My goal was completed, that layer of purpose was shed, it was awesome. At the time, I probably wasn't thinking about it in this way, but after having time to reflect over it, I can now understand that, hey, the only thing that changed was my thinking. I was pretty much in the same scenario, still in school, still with pretty much the same people. Circumstances were pretty much the same. It was just my changing that shifted that allowed me to actually reach that level of thinking that I did 2 years before the point that I actually got laid. I could have had like the same circumstances, but nothing would have changed simply because my level of thinking wasn't calibrated, if that makes sense. And I'm using sex as an example because especially when I was younger, I was super obsessed with it. It was the only thing I could think about pretty much. And I know it is the same way for a lot of guys, especially if you haven't lost your virginity or had experiences like that. And you see a whole bunch of other guys who are getting those experiences. But really when it comes down to it, it can apply to any other area of your life that you're trying to improve or level up in. If you want to level up and change your physique from being really skinny or just like really overweight, basically just unfit, to now having a lot more muscle, having a lot more energy, vitality, and all that good stuff, you are going to have to start thinking in the way that the people who have that think, if that makes sense. You have to stop thinking in the way that you're currently thinking if you're currently not getting those results. The couch potato and the athlete have very different ways of thinking. When I really wasn't into fitness and I really didn't care about my health, it just wasn't something that I was focusing on, I'd be fine with eating a whole bunch of junk food if I could. I'd be fine with staying up really late and burning my eyes, having the screen right up to my face because I just didn't know about all these things. I'd be fine with not exercising for a while and sitting down at the desk playing video games on my computer for a while. But eventually, once I started to think about, okay, how can I level up my physique? How can I actually get stronger and have more energy and all that good stuff? And I started to change my level of thinking. Now it's hard for me to sit down for an extended period of time and not do any exercise. It's hard for me to stare at a screen for an extended period because I know what that actually does to your eyes. Just by changing my thinking, I'm getting different results. Or say when it comes to money, I'm sure you can practically understand that if you think in a certain way, if you think like a broke person, you're going to get the results that broke people get. If you think like a person who is very good with finances and learn how these people think and how they work with their money, manage it or whatever, you're probably going to get similar results to what they're getting. It's just like simple, but a lot of people just don't think about it. A big part of getting the results that you want in life is literally just changing the foundation, which is the way that you think, setting the sail, changing the direction that you're actually going just by changing the way you're thinking. If you're watching this far into the video, I assume that you kind of conceptually understand, like even if you don't agree completely that it's your thinking that control is a major part of the way that your life turns out, you kind of just understand, okay, your thinking is important at least, like it probably is a very important factor. A question that might pop up is, okay, how do you actually go about changing your thinking? Who do you go to? What do you actually do? The best piece of advice I could give you on this is change your associations. And when I say associations, this is like kind of broad, but pretty much the people that you're influenced by. And this doesn't just mean your friends and family, but this is also books that you read. This is also videos you're watching right now. This is an association, even though it's like a parasocial, I think that's the name, parasocial relationship. You're still being influenced by my association by watching this video. When you read a book or listen to an audio tape or a podcast by somebody else, you're getting indoctrinated by like whatever their thinking was at the time. And like, you're just like exchanging that, if that makes sense. Your thinking is so dramatically changed by the associations that you have. So really because of this, there's two main things to focus on in terms of your association. One, you've got to make sure that you're associating with the right things. Like you're putting yourself in the place where you're getting the thoughts or you're being influenced by the people who you want to be influenced by. If you're reading a book who has a lot of knowledge and success in an area of life that you like want to have more success from, okay, read that book by that person, be influenced by them, because that will change your thinking. It'll change the way that you think about that area of life and help you get better results. It's the same thing I did when I had the goal of losing my virginity. It's the same thing I had when I had the goal of improving my physique and building more muscle. Make sure that you are associating yourself with the people who think in a way to where they're getting the results that you want, if that makes sense. If you're reading a book who has a lot of knowledge and success in an area of life that you want to have more success from, okay, read that book by that person. Be influenced by them, because that will change your thinking. It'll change the way that you think about that area of life and help you get better results. It's the same thing I did when I had the goal of losing my virginity. It's the same thing I had when I had the goal of improving my physique and building more muscle. Make sure that you are associating yourself with the people who think in a way to where they're getting the results that you want, if that makes sense. I'd say the main thing, if you want to start getting different results in your life, start leveling up, just pay attention to the things that you're thinking about. Pay attention to the things that you're consuming that then affect your thinking. Make sure that you're not putting garbage inside of your brain. Make sure that you're putting in the right things so that you can think in a certain way, so that you can get the results that you ultimately want. I know it may sound a little bit broad and vague, but whatever you're doing, you wake up tomorrow, or you start thinking about whatever, just start to think to yourself, okay, is this actually pushing me in a direction that I want to go? If you're having all of these, these bad thoughts about yourself or the world or whatever, is this actually pushing you towards the way or the direction that you want to go? If it's not, okay, how can I change my thinking? How can I change the way that I'm thinking so I can get the different result that I want in life? If you got some value from this video and you're interested in joining a brotherhood of men who are interested in leveling up their lives, becoming better people, whatever, you can click the first link in the description. It'll take you to our Discord community. It's absolutely free. It's a community of guys who are, again, dedicated to leveling up, living the best quality of life that we can. But anyways, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit, and yeah, peace out.